Bang! Knees Knives. I'm Jared. My lovely wife Kara is not joining us for this video, and today we are checking out the Liong Mah Hawk. This knife was sent to us by ordinary-average-guy-EDC on Instagram. I will link him below if you want to go and check out his Instagram. I was really excited when he messaged me about this knife because I've been wanting to get some Liong Mah on this channel, and there are a couple other ones that I really want to check out. And this one is definitely one of the ones I want to check them all out. So I definitely appreciate getting to check this knife out. It's an M390 titanium frame lock knife. It is 3.4 ounces in the weight. The total length is 7.3 inches with a 3.25, so 3.25 inch blade. Here is a decent, a decent size comparison with, this is plastic, so a decent size comparison with the Benchmade Bug Out. Let me throw in a couple more size comparisons. Here is the Civivi Elementum. And then this is a really good size comparison to me. I really thought that this one was good. This is the Kaiser T1. I thought that this was a pretty good size comparison. Let me just lower you down a little bit. Very good size comparison. I love this knife. Kaiser T1, very good knife. And you know, I'll just do one more. This one's pretty well known. Here is the Spyderco Para 3 Lightweight. You can see it's smaller than it. But yeah, really good EDC size. It's got the nice sheepfoot blade. Some people might call this a Wharncliffe. I definitely call this a little bit more of a sheep's foot, because a Wharncliffe would have a straight blade and then would have a slow taper from here all the way down to the tip. So this is more of a sheep's foot, and you can see how it has a belly that cants up, which works really good for when you do have it in hand. Let me raise you up just a little bit. For when you do have it in hand to use it, use the tip and to use the belly. If you really look at the blade, you'll see how the handle kind of tapers down right here, and then the blade kind of tapers up, and that makes for you to be able to get your blade onto objects really nicely, which is awesome. I do like to see that. And you can see this very deep hollow ground blade. Now this is made by Riet, which, if you don't know, Riet is a Chinese company, but it's a high-end Chinese company. They are probably, if not the best, they're one of the best companies that that you can get from China. I mean, they're very nice high-end knives that definitely pay attention to detail and are well made. And this one is also well made. It's got a very thick blade stock with this deep hollow ground blade. Now I'm gonna go over this blade really quick because this is definitely some of the good. I am going to also sharpen this. I will stop it halfway through, sharpen it, and then show you the after, and then talk about it. Now the edge, as you can see, now if you really look, you'll see how this part is the thickest, that part of the edge, and then this part is the thickest. You know, let me lower you down. I'll zoom you in a little bit. You see how this is thicker right here, and then it kind of thins out, and then it gets thicker again right here. Now that's because the edge is thicker. So this would be the thickest part of the edge, and then this would be the thickest part of the edge. Now right here in the belly is the thinnest, and that's 10 thousandths thick. It was actually a little under 10 thousandths. It was more like 8-9 thousandths, but I'm gonna say 10 thousandths thick. It's very thin. Now you'll see this very good taper. Now look at this fine tip, very thin tip, and think about it, that's the thickest part of the edge. I mean, and then you could see that they added some reinforcement behind the edge with this swedge, Now it still has a nice thin tip, so it's going to work very nicely, but that just adds a little bit of strength and a little bit of reinforcement behind that tip for when you're pressing down behind it, which is very, very well done. I mean, some tips, the reason why they'll break or chip is because when you're putting pressure, if you drop it or something like that, they don't have reinforcement behind it. And this has a lot of reinforcement behind it, so it's definitely a well done tip. This whole thing, and then you see how the hollow grind goes all the way up to the top right here. That's amazing. I mean, that's awesome. And the stock thickness is super, it's actually pretty thick, maybe even a little thicker than it needed to be, but they still got this deep, thin hollow grind. It's awesome. It just shows you that, you know, some of these companies that have these thick blade stocks, they don't have to have the edge as thick as they do. They just didn't, you know, make the best blade geometry they could have out of the knife, unless if that's the way they wanted it. You know, I'm not talking crap about any company or anything. I'm just saying that it's definitely possible to have a nice thick blade stock and get down to a very thin edge. Now, like I said, Riat did this knife, and I think the new Liong Mah knives, and I'm not positive on all of them, but I did see one new one. It had a captured pivot system. Now you see how this one has the Torx on both sides. The new one I saw, not of this model, but just a new Liong Mah knife, had a captured pivot system. I'm not sure if they're doing that with all the knives, but they might be. All right, let's do some action. You know, first let's take a really good look at this knife. I mean, everything is just, I got some new lighting, so I'm kind of wanting to see how this review goes. I might keep something like this. I'm not sure, but it definitely adds to the quality, because if you noticed before, I was getting lots of blurriness. I think it was the pad I had laying down, and this is just incredible. It looks so much better. Okay, so let's get to the action. Now you see how this thing has a very minimal flipper tab. I mean, very, very minimal. It does have some jimping, but the jimping, it's not really sharp, which I understand why they didn't make it sharp, and I'll tell you that in a second, but it's enough to where it bites your hand. I could have used a little bit sharper jimping, but I know some people, you know, they don't like sharp jimping. I have, you know, really aggressive skin, so but you see it flies out very good. Now you can do a light switch if you want to. It's just not the easiest. You kind of have to, you know, put some pressure on it. But for the push button, that's the way it really is supposed to be, and it works very well. The detent is very strong, and they needed to make it strong because of the minimal flipper tab. But the flipper tab does turn into this little finger guard, which is where you're going to feel the jimping in another area. So that's probably why they didn't make it sharp, because they wanted you to be able to hold it like this and not, you know, complain about it being sharp. So very, you know, they definitely thought that out. Now, when you unlock it, the detent ball is right there. You can drop it and let it hit your finger, but sometimes you see how I hit that the detent ball right there. It does have a nice big detent ball too, as you can see. But you can let it hit your finger and then drop it, but see how right there I hit the detent ball. Now, it's not that big of a deal, because what I like to do is I like to push up right here, and I push up and out like that, and it slaps it shut normally like that, which is kind of satisfying. It kind of makes you feel like it's one of those double detent knives. But you also, if you hit the detent ball, you can just nudge right past it, because they put a detent ball track in. Now let me show you the detent ball track. The detent ball track is right here, and now I'm going to explain what that is. You can see it if we can pick it up. It's right there, that little notch right there. You see how it squares, and then right there's a little notch. Now what that is that's where the detent ball hits when you go to shut a knife, and you know, sometimes it rides right there. But when they put that little cutout, it makes where you can push past it without it being like this one. See how if it hits, I have to like put pressure to actually get past it. Here's another good example. This one is pretty firm, so when I push past the out, slap shut, it's hard to push past it without it slapping shut on me, because I have to put pressure. This makes it to where you can just easily push past it. Or if you land on it, right there's land, you can shake right past it like that. You can just easily shake right past it without it locking back up. Because if you do that and it doesn't have it, it'll just lock back up. Also, you can let it go past it, and that's not too hard to do once you get used to it. And everybody gets used to their knives, so once you get used to it, it's not hard to just let it hit your finger. They did add a little bit of a cutout, but not that much. But they do have this little notch on both sides for you to unlock it. Now, the action on dropping it, it's pretty smooth, but they need to have a pretty strong lock bar to give it such a strong detent. So it's not going to be like the most drop shutty knife, but it's very easy to just slap it shut. It's kind of got that where it's tight, but it's super smooth at the same time. So you can easily just do that. So you can kind of make it drop shutty just by giving it a little tiny bit of wrist. And if you don't, it'll definitely wiggle shut. Now you see how this pocket clip is inserted and cut out. Very nicely done. The clip does work very nice. Plenty of room in there. And this ball adds really good tension. And it gives you a nice, easy way to slide it in your pocket and out, because the lining of your jeans just slides right on that ball. But they got this little cutout right here, so you can easily flip it over to this side. And you see that nice little cutout they put right there? That's really nice. The finish is kind of, sorry, I hit it. The finish is kind of like a stone wash, but I'd say it's more of a bead blast finish. The texture of the handle is not really a stone washed. You can see a little scratch right there. That tends to happen with these bead blast finish. Now this is very smooth, so it's not like a Sebenza bead blast. It's actually an aluminum oxide blast. This is kind of a real bead blast finish, which makes it nice and smooth and soft. Okay, now let me give this thing a good look at the edge, and then I'll get it sharpened up, and we will come back, because this is definitely taking a while, and we will get to the bad things, because there are so many good things. Very thin hollow ground blade. Love how thin this gets. I love the taper of the tip. I do like the pocket clip. I appreciate the jimping. The action's really nice. Yeah, let's and the attention to detail is really nice. They do have a lot of that, but there's still some bad stuff. So let me get this sharpened up, and we will get to the bad. So now, free-handed the edge, came out very nice, and I gotta say that I can't know this for sure, but if I had to guess, I would guess that there's a pretty good heat treat on this. Sharpened up really nice, deburred really nice, and just the way it felt on my stones. I did use diamond stones. I was going to use my water stones and put a mirror edge on there, but I felt like a 1200 grit finish, which is what I put on here, was going to be really nice for the way this knife is and everything, and it came out very sharp. And also you can still see the grip pattern. If you can look and see, let's see if we can get it to come up, but you can still see the grip pattern pretty good, which I still wanted, which meant it's still going to have a good amount of bite to it. But sharpened up really nice. It's super thin right there at the edge, so it makes it where, you know, it has a really good bite to it. And if I would have put a mirror edge on there, the choil it'd be a lot more pronounced. And let me explain, because I want to get to some of the bad stuff. But first, I just want to say this knife is a very nice knife, and it's well done. Very, very well done, to a very high standard. Okay, but, all right, first up, this blade stock is very thick. Even though they have a nice taper and a beautiful hollow grind, it goes through materials very nicely, but it would be an absolute laser if they would have had a thinner blade stock. The blade stock is a little thicker than it needs to be, and they still could have had the same amount of taper, the same hollow grind, the same everything, if this would have just been thinner, because you can feel it going through materials that the blade stock is thick, and it makes it to where it doesn't go through as good as it could. That being said, it still cuts very, very good. I mean, it goes through materials very, very well. But certain materials are going to have a lot more resistance than others because of that blade stock thickness. Another thing is this choil. I'm going to show you really quick. Let me get out this marker. Don't be scared. This will come right off. Okay, so the thickness in the steel goes like this. So this is basically all thick right here, and then this is the hollow grind. It actually kind of wraps around more and like this. So this is the hollow right there, all of that, and then this is really thick. So when you sharpen, if you sharpen back to here, the edge is literally going to go like this. It's going to go across and it's going to go up like this. If you start sharpening back here, it's going to have a huge smile, which a lot of sharpeners hate to see, or people hate to see on the knives, but that's the way it's going to be because of the way they did the sharpening choil. Now it makes it to where I can see the choil now because it has an edge on there. Before, you couldn't really tell the difference between what was sharp and what wasn't, but now you absolutely can, so you can use it a little bit better. But when you sharpen it, if you go back to here, you're going to get that. Now the only other choice is to sharpen straight up. So basically to go from here and just sharpen straight up the blade. Now as steel goes back, and I'm talking about through the years of sharpening, which would take a lot of sharpening, but as sharpening happens, say when the edge is right here, you know, and you take off this much steel, this is going to be still here. So the edge will be up here now, and then this will still be left here. And I don't know how good that's gonna look, but you know, Liong Mah likes to do choilless edges. He don't like sharpening choils, so it is what it is. This is some rubbing alcohol, comes right off. And I got a ton of these knife wipes, so that's what they're for, right? Okay, so you know, it is what it is, but it's a thing, you know. And you know, I guess right now what's cool is you can literally just go in, this is kind of weird to me. Sorry to backtrack really quick. The fact that we have this here, right? So your stuff can still get trapped there. Like say if you're doing like wham, wham, wham type of sharpening, just like going, you know, like cutting cardboard just really quick, you can still hit this spot. Yeah, I guess you could just draw it across. I don't want to touch the edge. It's very sharp. So I guess you could go like this and then just draw it across. But as you sharpen, I don't know. It's going to have a little stair step eventually. That's after, you know, a lot of sharpening. But still, you know, I don't know. Or you could just put your finger there and you can just repeat cut, I guess. But since he has this little notch out here, I don't know why he wouldn't want to just put the choil from here, from this little spot right there, and just wrap it around to there. It would have been perfect. But he didn't, so I'm going to say that can be considered a bad thing, especially for sharpeners. The blade stock thickness is a little thick, which these edges are very sharp. So holding it like this, like if I hold it like this, I can absolutely, especially if I squeeze it just right, my pinky can feel this edge really good. And then this back here, you can absolutely feel that. I mean, you can see it's an edge. And then back here, the same thing can be for your palm. So if I squeeze it like this, I mean, it's cutting into my fingers. You can see it. Sorry, I got blurry right when I wanted to show you, but it does. It is what it is. So if it didn't have that, these edges, and they were a little knocked down, or if the blade stock was thinner, then these would be closer together. Then your fingers wouldn't go in there as deep. Now also, the choil. They could have put a sharpening choil, but instead they put these little cutouts. That makes this even sharper. So in order to unlock it, you can't just push sideways. You gotta like push into this little sharp edge right there, which is very sharp. And over, it gets sharper and sharper the more you do it. You know, just doing it once or twice isn't a big deal. So, you know, but if you were going to repeatedly do this over and over all day, taking out your knife, using it, you know, it's going to get annoying. they could have put just a cut out there, and you'd have something to push, and then they wouldn't have to make this so thin right there to where it is even sharper. Or they could have just knocked down these edges a little bit and rounded them a little bit. They maybe put a little jimping there. I don't know, but I feel like they could have done something different rather than had it that sharp. So with these sharp edges, that's a bad thing. The blade stock could be a little thinner, and they could have added a sharpening choil. Since he doesn't like to add sharpening choils, I understand. So at least make it to where right here is the same thickness. So then you don't have that, but then you would have had this problem, right? The blade right there, right? But what they could have did was put the stop pin in there, and the blade would be a little wider down here. I don't know. I guess that would mess up everything. But so I get whatever, you know, I mean, it is what it is, but at least, you know, something different there. And if he is going to leave it there, then it is the way it is, right? It's still a nice knife, and it doesn't take away from the fact that this is a beautifully well done knife that, yeah, with a minimal flipper tab, heavy detent that does, you know, flip out very nicely. I'm going to say that this is a straight EDC knife, so like holding it in certain grips, you're not, you know, going to be bearing down on it anyways. I tend to feel like this is a more of this type of grip knife where you hold it like this and like this, you know, maybe sometimes like this, but yeah, very cool EDC knife, very well done. It just has, you know, those couple little things, and there you go. Peace.